first meeting in July prior to our regular Board of Selectmen meeting. So I'll call the meeting to order as the present chairman. We have all 5 selectmen present, and the first order of business is to elect a chairman.
Make a motion to elect Cindy Egan as chairman.
Shelley's motion and Ethan seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Second up is to elect a vice chairman.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to elect Ethna Thompson as vice chair for selectmen.
Ethan's motion to elect Ethna Thompson
Second.
and Shelley seconds. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is all those opposed and all those abstaining. I can't vote for yourself.
Side of it.
All right, 4-0 and 1 abstention. All right, next up is to confirm the date and time of selectmen's meetings. So at this point, you have the first and third Monday at 6 p.m. And is that something that works for folks' schedules?
Yes.
Okay. Do we need a motion, Joe, or are we just, just?
I think you should, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we need a motion that we're holding our regular selectmen's meetings on the first and third Monday at 6 p.m.
So moved.
And that's Ethan's motion
Second.
and Ethna's seconds. Gotta get my ends right.
The A and the.
Yeah. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Notification procedure for special meetings. So this is spelled out in our policies. And are we just affirming the policy, or?
I think the intent is to just make everyone aware that if there's a meeting that happens between regularly scheduled meetings, posting, policy requires 3-day notice for posting. If it's an emergency, it can't be 3 days, then the press needs to be notified. So the procedure, I think we could drill a little deeper into that. Procedurally, typically it's the chairperson that communicates with the remainder of the board. So the procedure would be, chairperson, let me know that we're calling a meeting, and then let the other folks know.
All right, so basically just a notification, then, yeah, no need to make a motion. We do need a motion that we are about to adopt the rules of procedure for selectmen's meetings using Robert's Rules of Order.
Madam Chair, make a motion that we adopt Robert's Rule of Order for meeting procedure for the regular Board of Selectmen.
Ethan's motion, second, and Ethna seconds. Comments or questions? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next up, number 7 is to appoint the town's legal counsel firm. We have an agreement with the Pretty Flaherty Law Firm to provide legal services.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to appoint Freddie Flaherty as the town of Rangeley's legal counsel firm.
Ethan's motion, second, and Ethna seconds. Comments or questions? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Town policies and trainings. So everything in section 8, there's a signature page. So I'll first highlight the code of ethics. Are there any questions regarding the code of ethics and the contents? Moving on to the town of Rangeley harassment and sexual harassment policy. Any comments or questions? A minor update. On page 2, where it says there are 2 ways to take action, they specifically name Tiki White as the administrative assistant and Perry Ellsworth as a town manager. So that would just need to be corrected. The media policy follows. Any comments or questions with the media policy? Contacting legal. Comments or questions regarding contacting legal? Grant acceptance policy. Questions or comments there? The fund balance / general fund policy. Any questions or comments there? Shelley?
So at the end of that policy, at the completion of the annual audit, that the treasurer or finance director shall submit the town of Rangeley Select Board a report of the town's fund balance and classifications. And I don't believe we've gotten that. We do that annually at the end of the year, so that would be received more at the end of when the numbers are final in July or beginning of August.
I'll take a look at that and get back some data on that.
Any other questions or comments on the fund balance general fund policy? The investment policy. There just, I just have one comment. There just seems to be the finance director is mentioned and the treasurer within the same paragraph. And they're one and the same, so I guess I would just suggest choosing one or the other. So it's not confusing that we have both, you know, we have two different people, you know, acting as treasurer and finance director. That's kind of the first, actually, it's kind of throughout the document. Yes, Shelley.
And then other regarding the reporting, that we're supposed to receive a quarterly investment report for all funds invested to the town manager and select board. And then it lists what it includes in the report.
Something for you to look at, Joe, and come back to us. All right, any other questions on the investment policy? The remote participation policy. Questions or comments? Lastly, forward training, which Tracy points out in her notes that must be completed within 120 days. It's an annual training, so she'll keep us updated when something's available. That's it for town policies and trainings. Feel free to remove them and keep them if you so wish. Tracy also discloses where they're found on the town website. We do not have an executive session. And so a motion to adjourn our annual organizational meeting.
So
Ethan's motion. And Ethna's seconds. All those in favor? Oh, that's unanimous. All right. That's it for our organizational meeting. Now go into our regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen's meeting at 6:09, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and the flags in the back. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Joe has placed revised agendas on the table. Anything in italics is new. Conflict of interest disclosure, if at any point during the meeting, a selectman feels that they have a conflict with anything requiring a vote on the agenda, please let the board know. Joe, are there any further adjustments to the agenda?
None, Madam Chair, except the three that you've already noted.
Okay. Moving on to number 4, review and approve meeting minutes for June 20th, 2022.
Make a motion to accept the regular minutes for June 20th, 2022, with, I think, a couple corrections that I need, that I'm looking at. There's one where
Wait a
it's.
second. I need a second.
Second.
Okay, after seconds, now go, Shelley.
Okay, so under boards and committees provided, it is the date right? It says end December 14th, 2022 for the sewer commission.
It's a typo, Madam Chair.
And then it's just the doll carriage parade, the parade's just spelled wrong.
Any other comments on the minutes?
Yeah, under select board communication, when I made the comment about the road signs, just the wording about constituents are not happy with town using the road signs, it was more specifically, they wanted to know whether the town was violating their own sign ordinance. That was specifically what I was saying.
Right, so a clarification there that there's a question, right, regarding whether complies with our sign ordinance. All right, any other comments, corrections? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Any public present to speak on a non-agenda item? Yes, Mark.
Just a question on this, those informational signs that Ethan just brought up. If they don't meet the sign ordinance, will the town just sell them? Get rid of them?
It's a good question. That's not.
So I understand because they are highway signs, because of the nature of what they are. And because they are ours, they don't necessarily have to comply with the sign ordinance.
Thank you.
Any other public present to speak on a non-agenda item? Also in your packets, there are board and committee minutes from the Airport Commission and from the Planning Board. Moving on to number 7, liquor license. There is a license renewal for Aisling Farms LLC, doing business as Aisling Ridge. And this is a renewal. Looks like they've got a little bit of bridge period because it had expired on June 29th. So
Motion to approve the liquor license application as submitted by Aisling Farm LLC.
that's his motion. And Sam seconds. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous.
Give everybody a turn.
Next up is a on-premise liquor license renewal for Rangeley Hospitality Inc., doing business as the Rangeley Inn and Tavern.
Chair, I make a motion to the liquor license for Rangeley Inn Tavern.
Ethan's motion.
Second.
and Ethna seconds. We have Travis here. Any questions for Travis? All those in favor? And that's unanimous.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you, Travis.
We have an event permit application for Church at the Beach from the Rangeley Baptist Church.
Make a motion to accept the event permit for Rangeley Baptist Church on July 30th, August 7th, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. and the rain date to be August 14th.
Shelley's motion.
Second.
And Ethan seconds. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. We have got the logging festival parade event permit application presented by Maine Forestry Museum.
Make a motion to accept the event permit application for Maine Forestry Museum to be on July 16th, 2022, from the times of 9:30 to 11:30.
Shelley's motion. And Ethan seconds. Any questions? Yes.
Is this pending certificate of liability for this current one? There's a little sticky,
Yes.
there's a photocopy of sticky note. So
Yeah.
should that be your motion?
So I will amend my motion pending the certificate of liability.
Okay. Shelley's amended motion. Ethan, are you okay with seconding the
Yes.
amended? Okay. Any discussion?
But
Yes,
do they
Sam.
need to check the nonprofit or profit section or no? Does it matter?
It, for nonprofits, they're, yeah, I mean, typically they identify themselves. I don't think there's a fee, you know, regardless of the, yeah, that's a good observation. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? It's unanimous. One of our amended additions to number 7 is the slide out summer for Rangeley Parks and Rec. And the event permit application is was included in with assorted documents on your table. So I need a motion to approve this event permit application.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the event slide out of summer for the Rangeley Parks, correct? Date August 11th, 2022.
Ethan's motion.
Okay.
And Shelley seconds. Any questions or comments? So Keith, this is new.
Yes, quick synopsis. It's actually a morph of what we do out back every end of summer. I figured my goal would be to become more of a festival carnival, with incorporating like the classes of the school that can do fundraising for themselves, and it becomes community-based carnival. So that is our goal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for the last minute push into the packet.
No problem. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Joe has put a letter that he has drafted for the ARPA premium pay to include it in with the checks. Looks like. Thank you for drafting this, Joe, and look forward to the checks being cut for our employees.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did want the board to have an opportunity to read this memorandum that I intend to put with the checks. I did mention that the board and myself appreciate what the staff did during COVID and every day. This will require action by the board, Madam Chair, to expend this money from that account.
Let's see here. All right, so
Right there.
Total amount, Madam Chair, is $49,725.75.
okay,
And that equates to $1 per hour worked by each employee. There were 49 employees that qualified for this. They have to be a current employee working with us today, and they had to work on premise or on site during this time frame. It could be remote work, it could be vacation.
all right, so we need a motion to approve the 49,725.75 taken out of the general reserve.
From the first
Oh,
tranche of
yes.
funds. Yep, that's-
And so is that, okay, we'll just keep it at that, doesn't matter where it's located.
It's in its own account
Okay,
currently.
What's the exact wording you're looking for, Joe? For the account?
So to expend, the action would be to authorize an expenditure of $49,725.75 for retrospective ARPA premium pay for qualifying employees as approved by town.
Good.
so.
And all that?
I hear so moved.
So moved.
Can we so move, Joe? Because I don't want to say.
I think you just did.
All right, make that motion.
Do we have a second? Go ahead, Shelley seconds. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Next up, we have a municipal quitclaim deed. This is for a release to Thomas Barr.
Make a motion to accept the municipal quitclaim deed for a camper on site number 9 Moose Hollow, Franklin County, state of Maine, town of Rangeley.
Shelley's motion
Second.
and Ethna seconds. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. We've got a second municipal quitclaim deed to release to Elizabeth A. Schurz.
Make a motion to accept the municipal quitclaim deed for 51 Fawcett Road, Franklin County, state of Maine, lien situated in town of Rangeley.
Shelley's motion and Ethan seconds. Any questions or comments here? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. We've got the IRS mileage reimbursement increase. Joe, would you just want to speak to that?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. So Article 19, personnel policy, relates to reimbursement of expenses. And at the end of that paragraph, it says mileage reimbursement will be at a rate equal to the state of Maine or higher rate as determined by the town manager acting in consultation with the board of selectmen. This rate is 62.5 right now. Motion would be to use the IRS rate effective July 1. My request.
Information.
Jeremy's motion to use the IRS mileage rate effective July 1st.
Ethan's motion
Second.
and Shelley seconds. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. For policy, we have a donation we need to accept. This is this $7,000 donation from Craig Sargent for the fireworks on July 4th, 3rd, 2022.
Motion to accept this very generous $7,000 donation that produced a really fabulous bunch of fireworks.
Ethan's motion
Second.
and Shelley seconds. Great gratitude, it's a fabulous show. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Another addition is the culture account to carry forward $7,000 from fiscal year 21-22 to fiscal year 22-23.
Chair, I make a motion to carry forward $7,000 from fiscal year 21-22 to fiscal year 22-23. Culture account.
Ethan's motion
Second.
and Shelley seconds.
Madam Chair, to be
Yes.
specific, this is for the fireworks.
For the fireworks, yeah, out of the culture account.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Chapter 38, motion to move back to planning board. I thought it was already there.
Yeah.
But if it needs an extra step.
So, as I recall, the last action of the board was to review it as a select board, because at the meeting in which you were reviewing it, one of you was absent. So what we've done in the meantime administratively, as you know, Bailey and Tracy and I, the attorney, kind of gone through your updates that you being the select board added to that document over the winter. Checked them, against statute and law and so forth. And those edits are highlighted in yellow in the document that was emailed out a while back. So I think formally at this point, I'm recommending send it to the planning board. And then there's a course of steps beyond that that we don't need to get into tonight, but there is a required planning board public hearing that may be scheduled at some point. And then if it does go to referendum in November, there's a required referendum public hearing for the select board to sponsor. And we'll talk more about those details later on. I may probably recommend at least one of those as a joint meeting. But tonight, I would formally request that this goes to the planning board for their review. And then they'll have a little bit of time to think about those next steps.
And they can take all the time they need, correct? I mean, this is a time sensitive at this point, or?
It's a good question, Madam Chair. I envision, I guess my recommendation is November, have an election, a referendum in November, because there are a couple other ordinances that are being worked on. Also currently, get those handful of words on November referendum. Yeah, there are some things in there that I think should be put into effect. I don't want to say it's wicked urgent, but we've been working on it for a while, so.
Yeah. Shelley.
So how will the changes after we've done all the stuff with chapter 38 be effective with all the new change for the state of Maine is making about the additional housing on the properties?
So, good question. We, at this point, the advice of our attorney is to don't worry about incorporating that in right now. Just work on the edits that you've got. She feels comfortable that we can go with this chapter 38 without putting, I think you're referring to LD 2003 and other things like that. She's comfortable, I'm comfortable with those being not referenced in this at this point.
All right, so what we need is a motion from a board member to move the chapter 38 document back to the planning board for their review and procedures.
So
Ethan's motion. And Shelley seconds. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Sam, we'll do our best to get you caught up on chapter
Yeah.
38. It's about this thick.
Yeah, I'm like.
All right, next up, we've got a series of appointments. So first up is the planning board. There are appointments for 2 members and 1 alternate. And so proceeding in order, just to review what's been presented, we've got a request for appointment from Rebecca Carmichael Austin for the planning board. Rebecca, anything you care to add to what's on here?
I've been on the board for 7 years, 5 years as the chairman, been part of the chapter 38, we doing chapter 38, so I would say I'm pretty qualified to remain on the board.
Thank you, Rebecca. And we've got Jake Bolia. Hi there.
All right.
Good. So your form is a little different. It's
Usually.
well, it just, you know, what we were presented was a request for reappointment, which doesn't have nearly as much information on it as the request for appointment. So it's the first time I've seen one of these. I don't know about the rest of the board, but so Jake, anything you care to share or add?
No, just like Rebecca, I've been on, well, 3 years now, but we have been working on the chapter 38 and other things, and just like to keep rolling with it.
Next up is Lee Libby, who is present. I understand there was a little confusing, you getting your request for appointment, but here,
Oh, I'm here.
you're here. Included a lot of information, so, you know, anything you'd like to add?
Oh, I want to help. I think my experience in my field will help with everything. I want to help.
Any questions for Rudy? And Valerie Sapolsky has also requested a seat on the planning board. She is not here to answer any questions. So what we need is a motion to appoint 2 planning board members. And then can they be combined in one motion, Joe, or should they be individual motions?
Much as I hate to say it, probably individual motions, it's easier to keep track of that.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to appoint Rebecca Carmichael to the planning board for a 3-year term.
Ethan's motion
Second.
and Shelley seconds. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
I'd just like to throw out a comment in general. It's very nice to have 4 applications for 3
Yes.
positions on any board. So thank you all so much
I agree.
for your continued efforts and wanting to be on these committees.
All right, any other questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. We need a second appointment to the planning board, and we'll do the alternate.
I'd like to nominate Lee Libby to have for an appointment for 3 years.
Shelley's motion to appoint Lee Libby to the planning board,
Second.
and Ethna seconds. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. We need an appointment for an alternate. So I just have a clarifying question. So are there 2 alternate seats?
Yes, and Val actually holds one of those currently.
Okay, all right, so Valerie, thank you. Valerie need not be considered for an alternate seat.
That being the case, Madam Chair, I make a motion to appoint Jacob Bolio as the alternate seat on the planning board.
Ethan's motion, and who was the second? Ethna seconds. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Moving on to sewer commission. We've got 2 seats and 2 applicants, so we need a motion for each applicant.
Make a motion to appoint Thomas Clinch to the sewer commission, term of office to expire June 30th, 2025.
That's Ethna's motion. And Shelley seconds. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Proceeding to Jonathan Atkins.
Make a motion to appoint Jonathan Atkins to the sewer commission, term of office to expire June 30th, 2025.
Ethna's motion. And Shelley seconds. Questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Parks Commission. First up, a cash view.
Motion to appoint Cash Shelley to the Parks Commission. For a term of office to expire on June 30th, 2025.
Ethan's motion.
Second.
And Shelley seconds. Questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. We've got James Janassi next for the Parks Commission.
I'm James Janassi, Parks Commission, term to expire June 30, 2025.
Ethan's motion.
Second.
And Shelley seconds. Questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Moving on to the school board committee, we first have Christopher Farmer.
Question before the motion?
Yes.
Didn't he win the election by write-in?
But each of these candidates won by write-in.
Yeah, I don't think they need to be appointed. I think they won there.
Right.
I'll have to double check on that.
Okay, I even got a vote count on it.
I haven't seen a vote count, so.
We double check that, Jim.
Yeah, I understood all 3 of those names have been elected to it.
Three
Okay.
more.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's what I thought. As well. Well, these 2 were on the ballot,
Right.
Lemay and Alexander, and then
When we
Christopher
first got it by
Farmer was
write-in.
write-in. I believe they all were elected the old-fashioned way.
So Joe, would a motion to table be appropriate for, okay, so we need a motion to table the school board committee appointments.
So
Ethan's motion. And Ethna seconds. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Moving on to the Rangeley Region Economic Opportunity Committee. First up is Kate Williamson's request for appointment.
Motion to appoint Kate Williamson to the Rangeley Region Economic Opportunity Committee, term to expire June 30th, 2025.
Ethna's motion.
Second.
And Shelley seconds. Questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Next up is Shelley Lowell's request for appointment to the Rangeley Region Economic Opportunity Committee.
Make a motion to appoint Shelley Lowell to the Rangeley Region Economic Opportunity Committee with a term to expire June 30th, 2025.
That's his motion, and Ethan seconds. Questions or comments? All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? So 4 0-1. Continuing on, we have got one request for appointment for Scott Wilson to the ordinance committee.
Did we miss one?
Oh, what did I miss?
Am I out of order? Or did I go too fast? How much too fast?
Okay, it's entirely possible.
Just flip.
I missed
it's
something.
like-
All right. Scott Wilson for the ordinance committee.
Make a motion for reappointment to Scott Wilson to the ordinance committee for a term to expire June 30th, 2025.
That's his motion.
Second.
And Shelley seconds. Questions, comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next up is Denise Mercier for the cemetery committee.
Motion to accept Denise Mercier for the cemetery committee, term to expire June 30th, 2025.
Shelley's motion.
Second.
And
Dan, you're ready.
you have plenty of time.
You know, everybody pause.
Ethan seconds. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Zoning Board of Appeals, we've got Robert Wilbur.
Chair, motion to appoint Robert Ryan Wilbur to the zoning board of appeals for a term to expire June 30, 2025.
That's Ethan's motion.
Second.
And Sam's second. Questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous.
Like I don't know what kind of game it sounds like. But you have to-
Sometimes-
it's like
it's-
slap, like it's like, you know, like happy hands or something.
Sometimes it's an awkward pause, sometimes it's a race,
Yeah.
rarely it's an argument, but it happens.
We've got a request from Tracy Lavoy for the HA Furbish Trust.
Make a motion to accept Tracy Lavoie's term to expire on June 30th, 2025 for the HA Furbish Trust.
Shelley's motion
Second.
and Sam seconds. Questions or
Thank you.
comments?
It's too kind of me.
All those in favor? That's unanimous. And to appoint Edward J. Roach as airport manager.
Madam Chair, make a motion to appoint Edward J. Roach as the airport manager with a term of office to expire on June 30th, 2023.
Ethan's motion. Sam seconds. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. So next is to appoint Robert Duplessis as the town assessor.
Madam Chair, make a motion to appoint Robert J. Duplessis Jr. as the town assessor with a term to expire on June 30th, 2023.
Ethan's motion. And Ethna seconds. Questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Next, to appoint Michael Bacon as the emergency management director.
Madam Chair, make a motion to appoint Michael Bacon as emergency management director with the term to expire June 30th, 2023.
Ethan's motion
Second.
and Shelley seconds. Questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. And last appointment is for Lindsay Savage as the health officer.
Madam Chair, make a motion to appoint Lindsay Savage as the health officer with the term to expire June 30th, 2023.
Ethan's motion. And Sam seconds. Questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next up are the disbursement warrant policies that are required to be signed every year. And so we need to adopt the policy on treasurer's disbursement warrants for employee wages and benefits.
Chair, make a motion to adopt policy on treasurer's disbursement warrants for employee wages and benefits.
Ethan's motion. And Ethna seconds. Questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next is a treasurer's disbursement warrants for state fees. Let's see.
Make a motion to accept the treasurer's disbursement warrants for state fees.
Shelley's motion, Ethan seconds. Questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Contract for services, this would be with Annalee Rosenblatt or Human Resources Consultant.
Make a motion to accept the contract for services with Ellie Rosenblatt for the term of July 1st, 2022, and to terminate on June 30th, 2023, unless otherwise specified here.
Shelley's motion. President Paul
Second.
and Ethan seconds. Questions or comments? Yes.
Was this another area, and I don't know why I recall this, but was this another area that we were going to look and see if these services were in fact no longer needed and were something that could be handled in-house?
Joe, I mean, I think the way we left it was that it wasn't expected that you use her services, you know, just as, you know, as needed, or, yeah, I think she was supposed to work on a couple of things for us.
Yeah, yes, Madam Chair. What I find most beneficial from this agreement is the labor relations portion of it. We have a year ago, so renegotiated, but there are items within that contract and things that come up from time to time that I do find some help useful with.
And so sorry, labor negotiations were part of the agreement with the attorney now too, though, with the retainer we had with him, is it not?
It's offered as an option.
Just double check, making sure I have all my information correct.
Sam,
And how often have we used her in the past? I mean, with what kind of, has it been frequent?
it really varies.
Yeah.
Seems
Seems like it's $1,000 a month, which doesn't seem too bad for her. You know.
Really, I mean, anything that comes up that involves the union, she is our go-between with their rep and the town. And so,
So it varies, but it is.
it
useful,
really
kind of
does.
Useful.
yeah, during negotiation period, it can last months, and there's a lot of time that is taken up with that.
Well, Ethna, who would you think would be, who else could do it?
No, it just used to be an in-house.
It did,
Yeah.
it's not another lawyer.
No, it was actually handled in-house.
Okay, yeah.
There were some problems with that. I would, yeah, I wouldn't go back to that. It's just my personal opinion, based on experience.
And we also use the services, where I was a town manager, which I hope we don't have to use those services anytime soon.
Yeah, that's, I forgot about that, Ethan. Yeah, she takes on the burden of, if we have a key position that's open, like you mentioned, such as the town manager, or in the past, it's been, you know, like the fire chief or the police chief, you know, she takes all the applications, organizes it, you know, comes up with a panel, and really just takes it out of the town managers. Takes, you know, not that the town manager isn't involved, but it takes it out of his responsibility. Joe.
And Chair, recently we've done some
FMLA training with this consultant and FLSA, which I found useful. I know some staff did too. I am working on scheduling, if this is approved, I'm working on scheduling sexual harassment training, also one of those things that are required. So I think I think it doesn't take long if we line those things up. It doesn't take long to get that value. Desire, but I also agree with Selectman Thompson's point of view that the retainer does include some of those things. It gives me some confidence as manager that I can now, based on the elements of what I'm faced with, does it need to go? Does an attorney need to do it, or can a consultant come up who does have some relationship with almost everybody that works with? So she's a known one too. So.
Thank you, Joe. Shelley, you had your hand up?
So the other thing that she's done too for us is like job descriptions and stuff like that to make sure that she's helped us with the insurance part for the employees. So if some other plan comes up, and it's helped us with those things as well. And I don't know if there's any new policies that are out there for insurance that would have better coverage. But she would be our go-to person for that too.
Sure. Any other discussion before we go to a vote? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Next up, we have got general reserve transfers. And Joe, so we need an individual motion for the moving of each $25,000 amount out of the general reserve into the specific fire, public works, sewer, cemetery reserves. Starting with fire reserve.
Make a motion to move 25,000 from the general reserve to the fire reserve.
Shelley's motion.
Second.
And Ethan seconds. Questions, comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Next up is public works.
Make a motion to transfer 25,000 from the general reserve to the public works reserve.
Shelley's motion.
Second.
Ethan seconds. Questions, comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Sewer reserve.
Make a motion to move $25,000 from the general reserve to the sewer reserve.
Shelley's motion.
Second.
Ethan seconds. Questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Last up is the cemetery reserve.
I make a motion to move 25,000 from the general reserve to the cemetery reserve.
Okay.
Shelley's motion and Ethan seconds. Questions or comments here? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next is the AvCog Executive Committee. Authorize the town manager to participate. I don't think there's anything in our packets. Pardon? Yeah.
No, there's no paperwork there other than I would like to be on the executive committee. I went to one of the meetings recently, and I would like to continue to do that as an actual executive committee. Nomination or approval to do that. They meet less than once a month, I think. I find that very useful.
Appreciate you doing it. So we need a nomination for our town manager, Joe Roach, to participate in the AvCog Executive Committee.
So moved.
Ethan's motion
Second.
and Shelley seconds. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous.
You always know I'm good for a so moved, don't you?
Especially when it's the long ones, I can see it on your face.
You take a breath and-
So moved.
I mean, I like to hear myself talk, but she says it so eloquently, I don't think it bears repeating.
Lastly, in section 7, we've got the Casella zero sort recycling services agreement. Joe, any comments on this?
Yes, Madam Chair, we are operating kind of on a month-to-month basis right now under the terms from, they're agreeable terms to us, they're less than what the ACR is in here now. But Casella would like to have us re-sign a contract. And it's not atypical for this to happen. I had a conversation with BJ last week and the week before. Basically with COVID, they didn't worry about, having a hard and fast renewal of these, but now that we're kind of climbing out. They are more interested in the ACR page that's on there. The new one is 140, the threshold is 127. So there's some examples there of how that works. Basically, if it costs more, then we have to pay more, but if they get credit, we get appropriate credit. And it's been that way ever since the town adopted this. But the kind of baseline is a little higher than it was.
Right.
It's up to 127. So I wanted to, I do recommend that we sign this pending, or I recommend you approve this pending a legal review. So in Schedule C, there are some items that I've sent the whole thing on to Steve and Kristen, but in Schedule C, there are a few things that caught my attention. I don't have a marked up version here. I was concerned about the laws of Vermont, a place where this would be litigated. Also, non-circumvention, I think Kristen answered that. Then there was an insurance question at the very end on the night. Then to look at, they said reach out to MMA, which I've done, but it was a holiday weekend, so I don't expect that they worked on that over the weekend. So essentially, it's a 3-year agreement. Keith and I have talked about this. I'm totally comfortable with the 3-year agreement. We've had good luck with Casella. If the board is still interested in zero sort, which is where we grew up, basically all the recyclables go in together if we can. If you're still open to that, you still think it's the right way for the town to go, I think this makes sense for the 3-year. Ever say it?
So it looks like on Schedule A, the less contaminated, the better.
Yes.
And
That's pretty difficult to accomplish.
Yeah,
what's
It's
that?
very difficult to accomplish
Okay.
contamination or lack of contamination.
Is this, I mean, this Schedule B is so helpful. Can that be handed out at the transfer station to folks?
That's
I
right.
mean, yeah. Yeah, I didn't remember seeing this before, but I easily could have missed it, but like phone books, I wouldn't have thought to, remove my foot-high pile of phone books and put them in zero sort, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but
Do you have a phone book?
like I said, it's. Sam,
do we have any records of like the amount of like contamination we've had in the past and how much that's cost us in the past and with this, so we've only done this month, the month prior to this contract with these Casella?
So, very good question, Madam Chair. Initially, we had a formal agreement that went to kind of month to month after a certain period of time and turned into a month to month because the agreement
Right.
ended.
Right.
But with this provision in there, it continues
Okay.
at the same terms until
Right.
somebody causes it to quit. So that answers that part of the question. As far as contamination, you could probably know more about that than I do. I don't recall.
Yeah, so no direct repercussions from any kind of contamination currently. What they can do, they can reject a load, which would cost us just another tipping or
Yeah.
transportation. And they're just landfill. What happens though, we're fortunate through Casella that they, through their automated sifting system, they are able to take out some of that potential for that. And what happens also is, I hate to be honest with everybody, but there is a blinder effect on recyclables. You know, what we put into there, that they're feel good items. You know, so some of that mixed paper product and other things that may be contaminated from you know, pizza box, stuff like that. We actually try to get most of that. Some of that stuff just gets landfill anyway because it's not worth anything to anybody. So we're fortunate that way. That stuff, that heaviest stuff typically is removed through that filtration system. But it could happen in the long run. It continues the way it is, and our experts become a little more strict, maybe a little more need for us to police that.
On Madam Chair, on the front end, so on the user end, when you go up to the transfer station, Keith's folks do a great job of, you know, kind of monitoring and assisting folks with what goes in there. So I think we have pretty good control on the front end of what's going in. There may be some, as Keith said, there may be something that goes in there like a pizza box or something like that that we didn't catch.
Oh, no.
Catch.
No pizza box. Tom and Richard catch me at least, I don't know, once a month.
Yeah, the controls are really good. It's just once in a while,
Yeah.
something make away, and the chances of that being a problem, the percentage would be so small on the other end that we probably would not end up with any deficiencies there.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was, if we had like an actual, you know, record of, you know, how much we've had to eat with the contamination and.
I don't recall
and how we-
anything,
And how we
but
would be better, you
Yeah.
know, exactly, like especially giving out these, and that's, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, is the market, like, is that, how often do we see that change? As far as,
I will
obviously it's a
honestly-
market, so, but I mean, is it?
So honestly, it is, as of late, at least month to month, we've seen a rapid decrease in the last year. But it fluctuates either way, so it'll climb relatively quick. Market fluctuations or any kind of global pandemic, not a pandemic, or conflict, definitely dictates what happens, but we've pretty much right down to $30, $20 a ton.
yeah, it's gone down significantly. Meaning it's less expensive now than it was during COVID. I remember talking to Keith before I came back. It's like, what am I gonna do with this? It's, you know. But, yeah,
So,
that's
and
a
then
good
we'll get
question.
them locked in at that rate, so that's good, I mean, whether or not. Well, not, I guess we don't get them locked in at that rate, that's why it changes, if it does change the ACR,
Right, yeah, that'll change based on
what is happening.
what the
Never
market.
mind.
what the
Yeah, never mind, we don't get them locked in. Okay.
Did you get all your questions answered? Sam?
Sorry.
No, this is what it's all about. We like.
Thank you for asking them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Question.
Yes, Mark.
Keith, I wasn't sure I followed you on the recyclable stuff. Did you say that it's cheaper to just landfill them than it is to send them away as recyclables?
There are components of that, Waste Management will tell you, Casella will tell you that there are items that they honestly filter out at this landfill. There's a weight aspect, so part of our plan, Joe and I talked about, I think Richard, was the idea of glass is one of the number one things. It's not worth anything. So the fortunate part for Rangeley is we've done, whole small portions of it out, but glass is one of those inert film materials and we use crush and bury. So that'll help reduce that tonnage that goes out. But again, mixed paper is one of those things that there's very little value for them to actually recycle it or reprocess it. So.
So what do we do with our recycled glass, people that clean their spaghetti sauce jars up?
So
Put them up there, what happens to them?
So right now, they go into
trash,
zero.
zero sorter trash. So that's one of the things that we don't catch frequently. So there's the returnables, obviously, that get put aside as donations, et cetera, or people take their.
Those are things with deposits on them.
Deposits. So typical glass, we'll say like teaching jars, pickle jars, all that stuff like that. Those, if we can catch them, we'll try to throw into the MSW trash based on, which right now actually is costing us more for the fact that's a higher tonnage rate. But that's something we're looking at, a way to process that in-house. So if we can get that to a point, crush it, we can then bury it.
Yeah, but how does that work with, I mean, every glass jar either has a paper label or a styrofoam label or paint or something on it. I mean, we can still burn that.
It's, there's processes, we can get through, I can go through a number of them.
So I'm just
Yeah, so simplest would be, expectation would be, if we could, simplest way would be for the homeowner to then, always, you can take generally your metal cap, put it in recycling. And then hopefully you can wash the label off.
Good.
The other side of that is, it's such, the ratio from paper to jar usually is minimal. So when you crush that to a fine enough sand material, or whatever, it's gonna biodegrade anyway.
Right.
So
That's what I would have thought. Scientists don't always agree with this stuff like that.
and we pull, another part of that real quick, just to go, that kind of gets out of that, we pull like 10 cans and everything out of the recycling because it makes us money.
Right.
So that's one of the things we pull out.
And the men up there are very good about that.
Yes. Yes.
Well, it'd be great to find something to do with the glass because it's so heavy.
We have plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking into it, I just would like the board to know that, Jerry, it's something that we're exploring, we haven't got this program off the ground yet.
Shall we?
A sand machine.
Well, that's.
I said it a couple years back when I saw that they were like, I think it was in the Bahamas, they showed a machine where they put the glass bottle in it, they make it into sand and then they put it back on the beaches.
It's been one of our discussions, maybe not beach use, not that we can't. But
We have one beach, well.
Well, but it's been a discussion I've actually had in the idea
Nice.
of pursuing, they're not overly expensive for depending on what your size is. So it could be a great tool for us to, a resource for us to use as, build material. You can literally drive your hand out through that pocket of sand.
Wow. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's something we're exploring and hopefully come back to you in the near, I say near future, and then in the next budget season and hopefully explore those options.
All right, so, anything else? Because we need a motion. to Authorize the town manager.
I need a motion to authorize the town manager to sign the Casella zero sort agreement pending clarification from legal as requested.
Shelley's motion and Ethan seconds. I'm sorry, Ethan's
It's
motion.
okay.
Oh my gosh, I was looking at a prior motion. That's not Ethan.
I know.
Just too much sheet. Any other
Like
questions or
autocorrect.
comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. We do not have any correspondence. Old business, main PERS. Joe.
Madam Chair, this is informational, really. I wanted the board to know that the 30th of June, last week, I got a document from Maine First to sign on behalf of the town meeting authorized me to do that. And I wanted to make sure that they had that back prior to July 1st, because July 1st is when it takes effect. Second thing I want to tell you, or took effect. Second thing I want to tell you is there's a 30-day grace period. Employees know this. They have 30 days from July 1 to decide whether they're going to join. If it takes 3 weeks or 4 weeks, they just have to pay back to July 1st out of there. And we can set up a auto deduct, we call it payroll deduction. So we have some folks, I have some applications in my office. We have some folks that are going to join up. So I just want to give you an update on that. But I have signed the agreement with Maine First. Still waiting back for the fully executed version for that, but I'll start at the end of this week. And just one other operational thing. Just so you know, there's a portal that I've signed up for that Tracy and I will use to administer this program. It's the link between us. And there are people we can call and email, but there's an actual we put information into it.
Any Any questions for Joe? Shelley?
So will Maine Pers sit down, the representatives sit down with each employee, giving them a letter saying how much that they would need to buy their years back? And if they have funds that they want to take from their current plan and roll it into?
Yes, Madam Chair, that actually occurred a couple, 3 weeks ago. Unfortunately, the actuary didn't have the numbers done on that day that they came up and had it face to face, but within a couple of days, I was able to get those numbers and redact the spreadsheet, so everybody had it in hand, the buyback that wanted it, that requested it, and then the actual letters from May 1st, the actual letter, I think, went out last week, so employees had that information. It was kind of a quick turnaround because of the contract that we negotiated. So July 1st is when it would be in effect from police folks. We only wanted to write one warrant article, so in that July 1st, as I alluded to, it was a 30-day period. So we hustled, I hustled as much as I could to help give information to folks. It's a big decision for them.
Sure.
And I think that they would take a long time to think about it. So it is in effect, there'll be more information to come. Just wanted you to know. Big takeaway is I've signed that agreement with May 1st prior to July 1, and that we're working on getting folks signed up that are interested.
Any other questions for Joe? All right, the second item under old business is a new addition, fire department engine number 3. Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this afternoon, I've got this proposal, Exhibit A. Cover sheet says the proposal on it. The second sheet is a picture of Pierce pump. Similar to what we looked at before. So Chief and I talked at the last meeting, talked about the waivers and what was expected from the board. And I was authorized to begin negotiations, not to exceed $750. Chief shared that with Pierce, and this proposal came to me this afternoon to the chief. What this is a what I call a demonstration item. It's a chassis that they have tested a certain type of engine. It's not a Detroit engine. It's a different name, a pack iron or something like that. They want to do some testing, so they strapped this truck down with a dyno machine, ran the engine, drivetrain. They didn't move; it just was strapped down, the wheels turned. So my understanding is that the drivetrain will be replaced, and this unit will be available for purchase. The thing that caught my attention about two things that I like about this. First one is it's, I don't want to get into the numbers right away, but it's less than what was approved at town meeting. The second thing is that we could have it, as I understand it, in December or January. That's probably the thing that really got my attention the most. So thank you, Chief, for working on this. I know he was on vacation this week, but I think he put this out prior to leaving, and it came at the end of the week, which is why I got it today. But, I wanted to share this with you. I think the only difference in spec, as I understand, again, I haven't had a lot of time to look at it either. I apologize for it coming in last minute, but sometimes I don't want to sit on it. I wouldn't want to sit on this for 2 weeks because recently Keith and I had an experience with the piece of equipment he was looking for that got sold, so that I think we're in a climate now that's a little different from years past. So the only significant difference I think in spec down here is the frame is not galvanized dipped. It's what they call E-coated. It's still got some type of electronic. It's not electronic, but there's electrical charge.
Like a powder coating,
It's like a powder
where it needs electrical charge to bond the material.
So it's coated, but it does have the pump on the cap, PUC does have a tack for suspension. But it would be repowered with a brand new engine and have 2022 warranties. I mean, all warranties would be the same.
So this, I'm sorry. So looking at the like the as-built, this is a 19 chassis. Is that what I'm picking up? 19 chassis, but we did some testing with it. putting new stuff under it, and it's being considered a 22 for all intents and
Right.
purposes.
For warranty purposes. Demo model. Significant change other than spec that I'm aware of at this point. Now galvanized steel frames. Frame.
What year is it? What year is it? It's not, is it 96 that I'm seeing?
No, that's what we're trading in.
Okay, phew, I'm like, wait. That is not, no.
If you look on the map sheet,
Yeah.
in the bottom right hand corner, very small print,
Very
on the spec sheet, the as-built, as it were, it says no, date November 19. So I guess that's
Okay,
when they started testing this thing. But what you're saying is this has never seen active work.
No, it's never been worked or driven around. It's been
Gotcha.
extensive.
I had to work hard.
There it is. Where is it?
So how do we pay for it?
Okay, sorry.
Well, I mean, before it was,
7-year lease.
this says,
7-year lease.
That's how we have to pay for it,
That's how
because
we
that's
have-
what's in the article that was approved.
well, this doesn't say a 7-year lease.
Right, so Madam Chair, good question. So again, this is the equipment. This is something that I see on our purchasing policy because of the PUC, and TAC force suspension is something that's also the financing. Is a separate component to this, the lease, the 7-year terms to be on specified by the board of selectmen is kind of a second issue. That is the pertinent question. So we're in a spot where my concern with this, and it says in here somewhere that this is a subject to sale, first come, first served.
Right.
Basically. And that leaves the challenge for me, for us to determine, number one, I believe this meets the needs of what we're looking for a truck. So I can say that I think that's been determined. Then the financing comes in. So I think we could do an expedited RFP, get that financing. I mean, especially now that we know what a hard and fast cost would be. The number that's listed here, this is what we would need financing on up to 7 years lease purchase. That I can do, have a sample or draft RFP on my desk that I turn into kind of a quicker turn. And bring those terms back.
Yeah, that's, because that's in addition to the purchase price of 638,000, so the financing needs to be, 750
Or less.
or less.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Yes, Keith,
I got some questions, is that okay?
absolutely.
So curiosity, not like this at all, but 19 chassis would be refab for 2022 and warranty to that point. If they're changing drivetrain, based on what I know about dyno testing, because it's usually to an extreme, to understand that motor's capacity and other components on that drivetrain. So they're saying drivetrain, they're going to replace motor train, rear diff, front diff. If we in between.
it's rear wheel drive, I'm sure. So, but my understanding is that all of that will be replaced. And so these are questions that I would want the answers to.
Yeah.
Prior to going too far with it.
The follow-up question to that would be, if they're converting to 22 with either motor style or going from the whatever X engine to a Detroit engine, obviously there's going to be a wiring change. That would be my thought, a harness change, which sometimes obviously becomes a very big headache. So just again, curiosity if that would be covered under the same drivetrain warranty and everything else that wiring.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is all brand new information, so these are all good questions.
So when we talk, sorry.
Yeah.
Madam Chair. When we talk about the 2020 being considered as a 2022 warranty, or we believe that it's still going to be a 25-year warranty like we discussed with the other truck, or is this different?
I don't recall that the warranty was 25 years. Prior to, I think it was less than that.
That's what I heard several times, 20 years plus. That was because these trucks had like a 30 years on our scale for when we need to be replaced by whatever whatever agency he uses, I can't remember the acronym, so that was one of the reasons why the other truck was attracted. The chief's line was because of the length of the warranty.
I think he expected the life to be 25 years.
I don't think I'm wrong.
All right.
I
Well, we
double
can,
check.
yeah, we'll have Joe check the warranty.
Yeah,
So,
Just a second, Keith. Go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah, okay. Just so, off Ethan's point of lifespan, is lifespan off the truck, warranty is considered 2022, but if the truck is under 19 or 22, because that's gonna change your lifespan of that truck. Or your resale value of that truck.
Mhm.
right, yeah. Good questions, really.
not to say it doesn't appear like it's a good deal. It
Right.
appears that way,
Right.
but, want to make sure we know what we're buying, what we're leasing.
Mhm.
Right.
So in the meantime, getting those questions answered, should he be simultaneously putting up for the RFP?
I don't see why not.
Thank you.
I'm trying to catch the first part.
It was while you are exploring answers to all these questions, should you put out an RFP so the action can be taken if.
I think so, because it's not binding, and you know, if this is time sensitive, which it seems like everything seems to be when it comes to these things. Might as well move forward with that step, whether or not these questions are answered or not, and then at least we got the process started.
But I understood correctly that there's no guarantee that this truck is ours regardless of what we tell this company right now anyway, right? I mean, all we can do is start the process that we have to start,
Right.
and if we make it in the door before somebody else, it's, but if not.
So do we sign, so to follow Ethna's question, so do we sign like a, preliminary agreement to purchase this?
That's a good question. I, like Keith, and probably the members of the board would like some time to process this.
Right.
However, knowing that you don't need to get in here for a couple of weeks. You could, if you were comfortable, authorize me to sign that pending a satisfactory review, legal review. And then the only thing with that is we won't know the financing portion. However, quick numbers prior to coming in here, it looks like it would fit based on, what it was before, the amount difference between 750 and 875. If you go from 750 the other direction, that's somewhere near where we're at now. So on first glance, it looks like the financing would work, but I don't want to do this on first glance. I want to be able to run the numbers. But I'd like to have the opportunity with Mike and others to really dive into this thing and see if it is the value that it appears to be. And I'd hate to miss that opportunity,
Right.
Like we did with the news machine. That was unpleasant. Through no fault of our own, it's the marketplace. Sure. So, I guess that would be, the board's decision, if you're comfortable with me doing a deep dive on it and making that determination, signing for it, and then as Selectman Thompson said, I'll right away release an RFP for financing and do a quick turnaround on that.
Does you signing for it, as you just said, does that require a good faith deposit or anything?
There's no deposit required with the lease. The first payment wouldn't be due until June of 23. So they'll hold it for us. If we sign it, they'll hold it.
Okay, I was just wondering, because
Not only will they hold it, they'll expect that we're going to pay for it.
Well, there's the other side of that coin, but it penalizes if financing comes in over what we're authorized to do by that article. We can't enter into the agreement. So that would be my only concern. I know asking them to hold it without holding our hands doesn't seem like a great deal to them, but.
So Joe, what are you looking for from us at this point?
I think based on the discussion, Madam Chair, I think I would like authorization after review by myself, Mike, possibly Keith, others that have experience with these types of things, and legal, finance too. I'd like to review this, and if it appears as though this does not put us in any jeopardy of going over the 750, and it meets our specifications and legal requirements, I'd like authorization to sign this to hold it or to purchase it. I also would like to talk with the rep and my, see if there's a way to do that. It's a little less binding, but there may not be.
Right.
There may not be in this climate.
So how do we word a motion to encompass all those things that you just said?
Good question, Ethan.
So authorize the town manager to review the specs of this proposal with fire chief and others, to review the proposal and any affiliated documents with legal counsel, and to explore the price with finance and others, to make sure that if we do purchase this, there's a reasonable expectation that will come in under 750.
And ultimately decide if all these boxes are checked.
And ultimately, authorization to sign this proposal.
I'll make that motion.
Ethan's motion.
Do you get all that, Keith?
The microphone did.
Yeah.
Have the awkward pause. Waiting for a second. It's not like the board of selectmen can choose the truck.
I'll second.
Okay, Sam seconds.
Not discussion?
Okay, discussion.
Okay. So the 4,000 for the other truck, to me, that seemed low just from what I just skimmed off the internet. With the mileage and stuff like that. And I know that the seal doesn't work. And I understand that, but that cost should be, I mean, I saw ones on there like for 40,000 to 100 and some odd thousand. So I think that that's a low number. And maybe get more of a return. And I can't remember, did the petition say a new fire truck? I can't remember.
I don't.
Great question.
The 22.
I can't remember.
Town report too, right?
Is that?
Oh.
E23.
You organize anyway, but don't take organizational advice from me. at all.
All right.
Anything
So the town
Anything you wanna
authorizes the
keep,
the town manager to
take
take any
out.
actions.
And then-
execute any documents or to enter a tax. lease,
Good luck
purchase,
figuring out
purchase,
organization strategy.
Does not say anything.
Does not say
about
anything.
their-
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure that we
You
were
delete all the
staying,
stuff if you-
During that.
or you take it all
and that we're not committing.
out. All the stuff.
I'm nervous.
That's the only thing, that we're not committing with not having all the numbers at the end. It's just, is it just like an inquiry is that we're doing? I just want to make sure that when the bill comes back, the legals included, I don't know, I'm assuming it's a title vehicle or whatever it has to do, transportation, all that stuff is included without that limit that we have to be able to spend on a 7-year.
So I'm sorry. You want to include, if we have to ask legal a question, you want to put that in the purchase price?
No, in order for the leasing company, they have to have legal work. And that was in one of the the lease agreements that we
So
had.
you mean every fee that's involved in
Every-
signing that
yes.
paper, like?
Right,
Okay, I
so how would
misunderstood.
we know, because they have to prove that the town had authority to borrow that money based on meeting warrant, all that stuff.
Are we really scared this truck's gonna go in 2 weeks? Are we really afraid that somebody else is gonna come in and swoop up this truck in 2 weeks? Because in 2 weeks' time, you can have your answers, have us our RFPs, we can make a decision at that meeting.
My guess would be, Josh, I covered off would be, other communities will have the same hesitations that you're gonna have yourselves.
Everybody else is gonna have to go through the same thing we're going through.
I would
To
say
get this truck.
on top, you know, like, again, you have, if you're gonna refurb that truck, not necessarily refurb this one, but say that if you're rehabbing that truck, refurbing that truck. Technically, still an 19 truck based on the bed numbers. Making it a 22 with drivetrain, but that truck's totally 19, or how that did read. So I think, again, hesitation wise, I would say anybody's gonna have those same questions, to want to research all those within the years, et cetera.
Mhm.
But as, I mean, it's a large expenditure, which I don't think would just be that fast, but again, stranger things have happened in the last 6 months.
Really?
Joe, how long do you think it's gonna take, not that you will know, but how long do you think it's gonna take you to gather all this information?
Probably the rest of the week, at least,
Right, so I mean,
at least.
Ethel's got a point, then. It'll take you the rest of the week at least. Then we're on you into our next meeting anyway.
So is the pulse of the board, am I getting a feel that, this motion is a little premature and you would prefer to wait, or do we, I guess at this point, we're just, I mean, it was a long motion. We're just authorizing you to get information.
Well,
And then there's an
motion-
action, there is one action
There's one action.
to sign.
Right.
If everything,
Without us having looked at the finance,
Right.
that's where I'm hitting the brakes.
yeah,
Yeah,
Well, everything but that, you just have them do his research and.
yeah, because the financing went undiscussed the last time.
Right.
So yeah, that's,
the only, confusing what I see with that one is if it all falls within the terms of the article. Then it's, I guess to me that it's there anyways. Joe wouldn't sign something that was $775,000 after everything was said and done. So if it falls, it personally doesn't bother me as long as it falls within the parameters.
Correct, but what you've authorized him to do is sign it before we know that. That's what I understood that motion was to authorize him before we even knew the figures. And that's where I keep hitting a wall, that's where I keep kind of getting a little hesitant with
Alright.
it. Not that, I mean, Joe knows exactly what parameters we're working in, but none of us are gonna see those numbers. So if this is gonna take him the better part of the week to get the answers for us, if we, I hate to even say this, if we can bang out an RFP tomorrow. And give them till our next, day before our next meeting, to get it back to us.
Yeah, if
Can
you-
finance companies work that fast?
Oh, yeah, usually.
Yeah,
I mean, there's not, I mean, how many people are leasing fire
Yeah.
trucks?
if Joe tells him,
Then we
listen,
can have everything in front of us in 2 weeks' time and then vote
right,
and be done.
if he tells him, listen, if this all falls within this, then this, in 2 weeks it falls, but we're probably gonna buy, a strong probably gonna purchase this vehicle apparatus.
Yeah, I mean, have the conversation with these guys, tell them, look, because of our form of government, and because of the way everything is kind of, this is where we find ourselves. I really think we need to see the financing before we say yes to, because if he signs this document,
it's done.
it's binding.
Maybe I misunderstood my own Joe motion.
I can see why.
We take it back. Second, I have that.
It's okay, but it takes all this talking between all of us.
Well, you can't figure it- you can't figure it out.
Think of it, you hear the motion, you hear it going over
Well, you
again.
can't figure it out until you put the motion on the floor.
That's
And then
right.
once it's there, then we can do all this.
And that's why I was stalling on the second, because I was
Sure.
replaying what was said, and I'm like, wait a minute,
Mhm.
and it
Yeah,
could go around and
But I
round.
knew once we had the discussion part, we'd be all right.
That was my thinking.
There you go.
I knew she was waiting.
She was waiting, wait a minute, looking at this number, and I'm like, okay, first of all, I don't like that number, the $4,000, but I think the metal's worth more than that, but.
Scrap it.
So what's the next?
So, well, we have to
Take a vote down. the motion.
take a vote,
Well,
yeah.
that's the intent, sorry, I apologize.
And,
Direct anyone to.
And Joe doesn't need a motion to just do his due diligence, you know, on behalf of the town, and I mean, unless you need a motion for the RFP, okay, all right. So, is there any more discussion before we take a vote on the current motion? All right, all those in favor? All those opposed?
I've never voted
And
against
abstain.
myself.
That's good, it's good discussion.
I was gonna vote for it just so I didn't have that, but.
Well, but we needed something to jump off from for discussion, so if there's nothing wrong with that, so, and if, so I think we're good until the next meeting, and that's our update on Fire Department Engine 3, Shelley.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
questions, Steve, too.
Oh,
Yes,
You got us thinking and.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
all right. So new business, we have got the results of the RFP for the mini excavator, and I guess I'll just hand this over to Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Among the number of things that you put on our things for the last 6 or 8 months, there was a mini excavator, which I believe we had earmarked, it was 60,000 for a used mini with a couple of attachments. One being a brush cutter. The other one was just a brush cutter. Yeah, and then a trailer. So we put that out and had absolutely nobody respond that had a used machine. We did have one response, which was Milton Cat for a new machine, which was more than the $60,000. So at this point, I'm not proposing that you accept that. I just wanted you to see the results of it. And much like the conversation the board just had, this prompted a conversation with Keith and I about, is there another way to approach this? And I kind of chuckled with him. I said, well, maybe there's a lease or lease purchase option, but I don't know if it's the right time to bring that up. But it is something that we've talked about, you know, that we might like to bring back, or release as an RFP for a new machine and what financing options are available. Or what leasing options. We may look at it and say, it just makes sense to lease it and not purchase, right? I mean, lease purchase, look at it a little bit differently
Right.
than we had originally. So prior to doing that, I just wanted to make sure that the board didn't have any objection to that, or if you had any other thoughts about it. Keith, if you have anything you'd like to add.
Just to piggyback on Joe, not to be anything hopefully, communication with the used market dealers, the biggest common response back to me was they could not honor a warranty. That's the biggest thing with the used unit, number one. And then secondly, the market is hot on used machines right now.
Yeah.
So they're not scarce, but they move relatively fast. The biggest thing was warranty. Secondly, much like Joe said, I would not even ask you to accept that bid based on the qualifications of the RFP we put out. But secondly, do some homework and other conversations with other distributors or vendors, contractors. There are prices a lot lower than, I say a lot lower, but between that 60 and 85, there are prices well in between for a brand new unit. So that's all I know right now. I had a small conversation in regards to lease, but I waited for me to get back to them with hour.
Caterpillar is not known for being on the low side when it comes to heavy equipment.
We did, that line with that particular, we had talked to, Hitachi was like, I think that's that guy, minus the trailer. 74, 75. The brand.
Mark?
I don't know what the intended use of this mini excavator is, but is it something that it could be, the work for it could be scheduled and you lease one for a month of every summer? Because it's something that we use in the winter, I would imagine. So if you lease it for a month every summer, you know, could you do what you needed to do without the town having to own something like that? That way, when it breaks down, the rental company comes, fixes it, you know, brings you another one and takes that one away.
So
It can be pretty efficient.
it can be, we can definitely look at that. Without getting into details, there is conversation about the use of that machine in the winter time, as another department. That's an option. Again, it's just preliminary. I will say, commonly with our rental companies that we have used so thus far, the repair work or the swap out isn't common. The repair work generally falls back on us and we get recouped in the long run. So that just, no, it's nothing that is deterring of that option. I think it's great. That's a good idea. I'll look into it. Sure. Also, it would be, you know, the cost would be drastically different. Looking at probably $4,000 a month to a rental piece, probably in that range, 4 to 5 or something of that size. So we can look at that option.
Any other questions for Joe? All right, moving on to the town manager report. We've got department head updates from the PD. From the code enforcement officer. We have got our tax commitment workshop on July 14th at 4 p.m. So Sam, usually we don't schedule meetings on Thursdays, but this is a special meeting with our town assessor to set the mill rate for taxes, and he couldn't make any of our regular scheduled meetings.
It is unfortunate. I probably won't make that meeting. I have a consult with a medical professional that's kind of hard to get,
Okay,
and it's gonna conflict with that.
okay. So Sam, that's July 14th at 4 p.m. just as shown in the agenda here. Probably take an hour. Ish. Under other business, UMF planning degree follow-up.
I have a call scheduled tomorrow.
Okay. All right, and Joe has appointments presented by the town manager. So this is a separate handout that was not in the binder that's sitting on the desk. And can we just accept these collectively, Joe? Or do you want them individually?
They don't need to be individual, and Madam Chair, there's a nuance to this.
Okay,
Can't find my list. There are 3 on that typically by statute, but one of them by statute requires a confirmation. That's the assistant town manager. So the other 2, road commissioner and code enforcement officer, by statute say the select board should appoint, but because we have a town manager, typically it's been the town manager that does it. So to answer your question, Madam Chair, if you could just confirm the whole list in one fell swoop, that would be good, because that would cover those 3.
so you want them read off individually within a motion?
Yeah, within one motion would be fine,
Okay,
because these appointments I've already made, but there are 3 in there that probably should be confirmed.
all right, someone take a deep breath and
Madam Chair, I make a motion to accept the town manager's appointees as follows. Lisa Symes, Animal Control Officer, Bailey Beers, Code Enforcement Officer, E911 Officer, Carl Coles, Deputy Code Enforcement Officer, Michael Bacon, Fire Chief, Tracy LaBoy, GA Administrator, Assistant Town Manager, Paul Ferguson, Packard Plumbing Inspector, Russell French, Police Chief, Jared Austin, police officer, Stephen Gould, reserve police officer, Earl Ross, road commissioner, Rebecca Carmichael Austin, tax collector and treasurer, Marty Bell, town clerk.
Ethan's motion. And Sam seconds. Any other discussion? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Receipt of second half of ARPA funds. That's encouraging, huh? Weren't sure when that was going to happen. And then, sorry, I skipped over county tax. County tax. So Rangeley's share has increased, and this year will be $729,862. And so we've got the fund balance report provided per policy. It's on here, but we don't yet have it. Is that correct, Joe?
In my binder balance here, I have a list of monthly interest from our cash sweep account.
So that would be for our investment income.
Yes.
Okay, so not the fund balance report. And then we've got, so the ballot here for MMA's Legislative Policy Committee, is this something we make a motion to
Oh, yes.
vote for two? Okay. All right, so we need a motion to vote for two for the Legislative Policy Committee.
Make motion to vote for Gary DeGrain, select board member, town of Jay, in addition to Ethna Thompson, select board member for the town of Rangeley.
Shelley's motion. And Ethan seconds. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? So 4 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstention. And Selectman Thompson.
Didn't even make a motion with the term or anything like that.
Okay. All right, I think that takes care of the town manager report. And there really isn't anything to discuss on the investment earnings page. It's just a report to us on what interest has been earned. Select board communication. Bethany, do you have any? Okay. Shelley?
Fireworks.
Fireworks.
Okay, who enforces fireworks? I know we've got a code for it, because I was looking it up while my husband was covering for Rangeley and trying to figure out what, because there was 2 complaints that they received on the 4th. And I was looking the ordinance up, so who polices it? I know the chief ended up going to one of them. And another one was,
I've personally witnessed over other years, the Rangeley Police Department with the fire chief showing up to a complaint. Oh, that's how it always goes. That's how it went that day.
right,
It's, in my experience, Madam Chair, it's typically Rangeley Police that will respond to something like that, or a complaint call to 911. If I'm understanding the question.
We don't have that written out
I
in
mean,
that policy.
our police chief enforces our ordinances within his power.
What's
correct?
that?
One voice at a time. Bethany, you had a question?
We don't have that written out in that policy. It doesn't say who enforces. Generally, enforcement is written within the language of the policy, is it not?
I didn't notice it
Okay.
when I was reading through. it.
Well, there's a policy we ought to look at and update.
Well, we've got two others that needed editing that we signed off on, so we'll be looking at, kind of our attorney taking a look generally. Did that answer your question?
Well, which is fine, but what happens if the state police are covering or the county is covering? For those items that come up. If they don't know them, I'm just saying.
Okay.
That's all I had. And if there's any way to know that, a lot of people, I don't think, realize that they have to have a permit in order to have fireworks. So I don't know if there's something we can put on our website.
There are signs
There's a
at
big
every
sign.
entry
Yeah.
point in town.
Yeah, I
At
saw that, and I was
every
very
entry
happy to
point.
see that, but not that.
I've seen the fireworks.
Okay.
Yes, Joe.
Madam Chair, this ordinance shall be enforced by the town of Rangeley Police Department and any other authorized responding law enforcement officer.
Okay.
There you go.
There you go. Thought. Clean that up.
Anything else, Shelley? So Sam, this section is for general questions. If a select board member wanted to, really anything that requires a select board member vote needs to be on the agenda, so the public is alerted, and anyone can have something added to the agenda. Just let me know or Joe know. So this is just general information sharing or just a general question that doesn't really fit in the agenda, which is why we added this select board communication part. So, I don't have any. Ethan.
Where are we at with the topic I brought up last week about considering giving the employees a retro Juneteenth holiday because they didn't get it this year?
That would have to be an agenda item because it requires action
Okay.
and vote.
And Madam Chair, it will be an agenda item. I contemplated it for tonight, but with the length of what you had, I figured sometime in later July.
This is my request to have it on the agenda before July is over, please.
Okay. Sam, anything?
The aquatic recreation area was brought to my attention. That's a place, Boogie, and I reached out, I made Nicole. And I went down there last Saturday and I just saw what he was, talking about, and it does need a lot of love. The tennis courts and the basketball courts are not really usable. I would, kind of embarrassing. But I don't know, I mean, that's just.
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, no, this has been brought up before.
That there's not even tennis court nets up,
Okay,
the hoops are, not even straight.
okay,
But then they had that lovely little cute little playground that
right.
wonderful for the kiddos, but as far as, being abused for tennis and. What's the other, what's the short one? Pickleball.
Pickleball.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Stuff like that. I don't know, just a thought, and that area is so cute and booming, and what he's done with the farmer's daughter and the cordage and all that stuff, it just doesn't fit in, so. I don't know what we could do about that, but.
Well, we'll have, that will be an agenda item down the road. It's been discussed, and we've had pickleball people here wanting, in the past about both courts and whatnot. So thank you for, responding to a resident and taking a look yourself. But we'll definitely get that on the agenda in the future. Shelley.
So could that be a part of the aquatic plans?
So Madam Chair, actually, in a broad sense, it is part of the PPI program, which Matt Drost is checking in on that, which means I've got to get it back to you folks. I think you've already approved, you've applied for it, but if there are any changes, I'm going to get back to you. But yes, PPI, which is a planning partnership initiative with Maine DOT, we've got fairly involved program for Quonset that Keith and I have plugged that area into. So initially, we were thinking about post office to who's that short stretch is 500 to 600 feet long. Then we kind of expanded the scope a little bit. Keith and I said, well, it would be nice if we could improve. We agree with the feedback, you know, well, I do, anyway. I think we know that we need to do something with the Quonset Park. But to answer your question, yes, as part of the TPI, we're gonna look at traffic, parking, those things that are kind of the bones of transportation in a Quonset. And then we've got some hope that we can work the overall plan, the master plan for Quonset Park, you know, into that kind of springboard off that. Do we reorient it, reorientate it? To expand it a little bit, there's kind of an environmental feature on one corner of it, you know, that may or may not be able to fill in, expand a little bit western. Yeah, so we agree, we'd like to keep it, I would like to see that spruced up, but I think it's going to be part of a bigger program, because the step back, and I won't take too much more time, but the step back from that, we talked about, is there a quick maintenance fix? And the advice of folks that do tennis courts and those type of things all the time, they're like, it's not a good use of your money to try and doctor this up for a year or so, because it's not gonna last.
Right.
So we didn't want to put good money after bad with that. We thought we should put it in the planning.
Was there like the parks, with the parks and recs, is there backup nets at least for, you know, that to be of use? Or are we worried about more injury being?
So tennis court, particularly in Quonset, is not gonna happen at all, this, based on the fact that that court is a hazard.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say, it's probably more. of a
One,
hazard.
the rocks that telegraph through the surface material, as much like Nate has talked to me, and made very good use of Facebook with his same argument. The tennis posts are totally uneven, but there is no good way to get in there and reset that post without a large amount of work. To reiterate what Joe said, talking with what I consider experts above beyond me, I mean, we can, you can crack seal and you can acrylic those surfaces, but it's gonna be, you're looking at a $20,000 temporary fix, because it's gonna crack over the next year. Same idea with the basketball court. Could we reset the basketball hoops ourselves? Yeah.
But that's even just as dangerous as the tennis courts, the floor.
Right. So it obviously with fault to myself anyway, with fault to myself, you know, I'll take blame over the years, you know, it didn't happen overnight by means, you know, it's been neglected without a doubt. But we have the best intentions to look at those corrections, and again, it's not gonna happen overnight. I've heard the same concerns. Not a good for anybody, it's not a simple fix of to reset that post and put that in. But we're definitely looking at alternatives, which would be unfortunately tennis court, and that itself is showing some stress on it. There's needs some work down there, which I'm hopefully getting done next week in-house, so that we can manage. So all I can do is apologize to the public for what's that, and we don't know that we're working on it. So you're welcome.
All right. We do not have an executive session. So entertain a motion to adjourn. Ethan's motion. And Sam seconds. All those in favor? All right, we are adjourned.
We have 600 pieces of paper.
Yeah.